Hi, welcome back to the Weekly Why. This week we have Parsha Tetzaveh. This week, much like last week, it's a continuation of discussing about the Mishkan, which is the traveling tabernacle. And that, of course, was the essentially the temple that existed before there was a temple in Jerusalem. This was the traveling temple in the desert. And so much of the Parsha talks about the vestments, the clothing of the Kohen, the high priest. Also talks about consecrating this let's say, making official the tabernacle. And so there's one idea I'd like to address. One of the ideas, it started actually last week when the Parsha talked about the construction of the Mishkan. But here, right after the long, prolonged discussion talking about the consecration of the Mishkan itself, immediately afterwards discusses the Tamid offering, the daily offering. Immediately afterwards, without a break at all. And so, if one thinks about it, just take a step back and think the Jewish people have been out of Egypt, they're traveling in the desert, they have to construct this complex tabernacle now, and immediately, without any break whatsoever, God says, okay, you finished the tabernacle, you finished this, you've been out of Egypt, 200 years of slavery, fine, now get right back into it and start bringing me the daily sacrifices. It seems a little bit odd. Again, the issue of sacrifices is a whole discussion unto itself. But if you were, for example, in that position, you might be inclined to say, you know what, God, we've been through a lot. Can we have just perhaps a bit of a break? Not necessarily jumping head first into it. And so that's something which is an interesting point. Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, he lived in the 1800s, he suggested something which was quite interesting. The whole reason this was placed, the consecration was placed immediately before the actual bringing of the offering, was to dispel a potential belief that the Jewish people could essentially, by constructing the Mishkan, do everything they needed to do in order to connect to God. After all, last Parsha, God said to the Jewish people, make me a sanctuary and I will dwell among you. So a Jewish person could very easily have said, okay, we just need to build the Mishkan and that's all that God needs us to do. And so that is a pretty slippery slope in terms of just thinking that outward actions are really all that matters. And so what this here is teaching us is that, well, you can build it all you want, but that doesn't do it. Okay, building the Mishkan does not actually affect any kind of change either within ourselves or in our relationship with God. What ultimately has to happen after that is the offerings. And when I say the offerings, I mean in today's day where there's no temple, obviously, so one can't bring any offerings at all, it's a matter of saying, okay, I'm going to shul, but what am I doing there? I'm keeping kosher, but so what? I'm learning Torah, but why? So this is the lesson for us today. And the same issue was back then, is to say, okay, I built this building. Well, so what if you built a building? After all, God is not constrained by a physical area, as he says in the book of Kings and elsewhere. He says, how can you possibly think I'm going to fit into this small building? God who created the heavens and the earth has no physical form, is not going to fit into a little holy of holies in a little traveling tabernacle, okay? The idea is not that it's for God, it's for us. And if the whole idea is for us, is that we're going to construct this tabernacle and then not even do anything with it just to construct a structure, obviously that's a total waste of time on our end. So the lesson for us is obviously that it's not a matter of constructing the tabernacle, it's a matter of what are we putting in it. It's a matter of why are we going to shul, why are we learning Torah, why are we keeping kosher, why are we keeping Shabbat, and any of these other things. The whole idea is it's not a physical action, it's supposed to translate into an interchange in our connection with God. So my hope and blessing for all of us is that every little thing that we do, every little mitzvah that we take on or that we learn about or that we grow in, is that we use that as an opportunity to do what it's supposed to be, and that's to connect with Hashem, not a matter of just doing something because you're expected to doing something or because that's what the people around you are doing. So once again, this Parsha has the consecration of the tabernacle. Immediately following is the daily Tamid offering. Why, says Rabbi Hirsch, is so the Jewish people wouldn't think that simply by constructing the tabernacle itself that they have essentially discharged their obligation and that's all that they need to connect to God. But no, it's not about the building itself, it's about what they do once it's built. So that's it for Parsha Tetzaveh. Best wishes, Shabbat Shalom, God bless.